Well, all sorts of legal issues still brewing around schools this afternoon. The Basic Education Department, as you know, says it wants to reopen schools for matrics and grade 7s on Monday. At least one teachers' union is going to court to stop them. At the same time, almost all Western Cape schools went back yesterday, but the Human Rights Commission in the Western Cape wants an undertaking from the Western Cape Education Department that it won't be teaching children until the national schools go back next week. And in the middle of this, the One South Africa movement, led by Mmusi Maimane, says it's going to court to stop the National Department from opening schools next week as well. Well, the leader of that movement, Mmusi Maimane, joins us now. Mmusi, good afternoon to you. Still a lot of time between now and Monday. Why do you want to stop schools from opening next week?
Good afternoon, Stephen. This is a crucial moment in our nation. We know that the basis upon which the Department of Education has gone to say it will open school has been on the premise that it said itself that it is ready. It said that last week, as the same way as it said before that it will deliver textbooks. It said that no child will die in pit latrines, yet we know the contrary is true. In this particular instance, we're dealing with a life or death situation on which learners could go to a school and contract the virus. So our basic argument is that, in fact, the court must grant a supervisory order that will ensure that the court itself says the schools are ready to be places upon which our learners, our teachers, our support staff can go back to. And furthermore, that, in fact, the department give itself the time to prepare so that it can, in fact, be able to comply with its own guidelines. So this is about ensuring that we create accountability and we make sure our schools are safe.
The SA Pediatric Association and the South African Medical Association both say that children aren't at risk from catching this disease. In fact, they both very strongly, and other medical groups around the world have said the same thing, that children are losing out incredibly by not being at school. We know, for example, that unfortunately for some of our children, being at school is possibly the safest place for them. Isn't there a strong argument to say actually they should be at school right now?
Well, Stephen, I want, like for any other person, for all children to get back to school, but I want for all children to be safe in those schools. It is a false choice to say that whilst kids are staying at home, they're losing out on one thing. So it's better for us to put 16, 17, 18-year-olds, which we know are carriers, can be carriers of the virus, to go into a place where they could infect others and increase the number of people in our country dying of COVID-19. So it's a false choice that people are being put under to say they must stay at home where we know they are unsafe, but let's also send them to schools where we can guarantee their lack of safety. Our call still remains. It is possible to achieve the outcome of sending our kids back to schools that are safe, and the court can be able to play a supervisory role to ensure that all children in South Africa, regardless of where they come from, what their income bracket is, they know that their schools are safe. Because it's also a bad argument to make to say, well, if the school is ready, let the same kids be able to go back there, whilst others are staying behind. The right to education and the right to life is a right given to all citizens in this country and must be administrated for equally.
I mean, I completely agree with you. The problem is that in reality, no country in the world provides equal education for all children. At the same time, if you say that 16, 17, 18-year-olds can spread the disease, and I'm sure the medical evidence is there, we could say the same about everyone. Do we need to go back to lockdown level 5? I mean, do we need to stop working until this is done?
No. I think, Stephen, we're discussing the right to life here, not the quality of education. Of course, the quality of education varies from place to place, but the right to life is something we must guarantee. We mustn't knowingly say to poor kids in this country, go back to places where there are no toilets, there's no running water, where you are going to be transported in vehicles as sardines, and then say, good luck. Hopefully you survive that situation and never contract the virus. It is possible to make sure all schools are ready so that all of us can get back into place. This is not about enforcing other lockdowns. It's about ensuring that our children, the very ones that your investment as a parent that you know is in safe hands, because when I go to work, I'm still responsible for my own livelihood. But when I hand over my child, my 18-year-old, into a school, I would expect that school to be able to protect their right to life. And therefore, it cannot be that that right can be suddenly taken for granted or provision is made to safeguard that life.
Okay, so you want a supervisory order. Would that mean then that the court would inspect schools? I mean, it's a very complex situation. I have sympathy for all sides in this, frankly, because it's such a difficult governance decision on what to do. And that's why countries around the world, I mean, Britain's grappling with this, other countries are grappling with this. I imagine millions upon millions of parents are grappling with this. It's an impossible governance decision to make.
It is a very difficult one, but it's a very important one, because we've also got lessons that we've learned. We've seen that in a country like France, where learner averages in classes are much lower than ours, they opened their schools and then had to shut down. We've seen South Korea do exactly the same exercise. Why should South Africa continue to be the guinea pig when the lessons have already been put around us? We recognize, I'm not irrational enough to not think that we're going to get everything 100% and guarantee no infections. If that was the case, lockdowns would be highly effective. But what we can do is make sure that the minimum standards and guidelines that the department itself has promulgated on are met, and that the court can give that supervisory role as it did in the SASSA grants payment.
The obvious issue might be that it becomes impossible to finish the school year. And now, we all know that our system is not designed to take 13 years' worth of children. It's designed to take 12 years' worth of children, or number of children, rather. Do we need to start looking at some kind of contingency plan? Do we need to pass children in lower grades and make some kind of special plan for matrics, perhaps?
We should have been doing that already. The sacredness about saying you want to save the academic year for 2020, I'm afraid that decision should be taken now, because that is going to be an impossibility. We can readjust our curriculum, as we've already proposed as one SA, to say a curriculum can be adjusted for this year, and that whatever is left over can be added on to the following year, and that for grade 12, for their own promotion purposes, we can look at their grade 11 marks or make special plans for how we promote those kids, and equally so for grade 7 learners and also for first-year university students. If we've gone into the COVID war in a warlike mentality, therefore we have to make decisions consistent with that. You can't simply say in an abnormal situation you are going to make normal provisions that you've always to. Therefore, this requires a department that, quite frankly, is coming to the party late, where literally a week ago they were doing consultations about opening a week later. It is abnormal, having known the fact that these lockdown regulations were in place since March. We cannot be led by a department that is this reactive, that this delayed, without a plan at so late in the game. So we are asking for sufficient time for the court to offer a supervisory role, and that we can ensure that all of these exercises are done in conjunction with the department. I want it to succeed, but I want the schools to be safe.
And Mmusi, you will know, of course, that the Western Cape has gone ahead and opened schools. Was that the right decision? And feel free to be as spicy as you like.
I think it's frankly the very essence of our own history and our own past, where in fact other schools were ready, suddenly will claim, and other provinces were ready, they will claim that they should proceed. And I think that it is wrong. It is wrong when we're dealing with the right to life without the guarantees given to parents, and the South African Human Rights Commission saying that they cannot guarantee the safety of all learners. For the Western Cape as a department to simply say, well, it's fine for them to put our kids in places that could be petri dishes for our children to die in. I think it's irresponsible. I think, broadly speaking, it doesn't understand the broader context of what South Africa looks like and feels like. This is a right to life that must be applied to a child in the Eastern Cape, Western Cape, every other province, so that we can give a quality education for all, not some differentiated state where some can benefit and others are left behind.
Mmusi Maimane, do appreciate the time. Thank you, the leader of the One South Africa movement there.